Hi, good afternoon. My name is Victor Younger, Director of Diversity and Inclusion here at the Nolan School of Hotel Administration. Thanks for joining us for a wonderful conversation that we'll have today with Eris Sims, class of '99, currently the Chief of Staff for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. We all know it basically as NAACP. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today. And we're excited about talking about the history of this wonderful organization, what the organization is doing now, what it's looking for the future, but more importantly, to really hear from Eris, from her perspective of how this organization is really benefiting the world. But before we jump into that, I'd love to just make sure we know who Eris is. And so with that said, Eris Sims, welcome to this wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here to chat with you. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. It is our pleasure to have you here as part of our Impact Week, as well as being an alum of the hotel school. So let's just start off with, who is Eris Sims? Who is Eris Sims that came to Cornell, where you're from, and how did you get to where you are right now?
Absolutely. Eris Sims is from a small southern town in Mississippi. I grew up in Meridian, Mississippi. And in the 5th grade, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I did my 5th grade graduation and told everybody that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, own my own hotels, restaurants, catering services, just do something in the hospitality industry. I come from a family of individuals that have worked in the hospitality industry for a number of years. So it was all around me. And as graduation grew near, I didn't even think about Cornell University and the hotel school. I actually wanted to go to school in Atlanta or go to an HBCU, Jackson State, my mother's alma mater. And I applied to several different schools, got accepted to all of them. And then a family friend was actually attending Cornell ILR school, and his roommate was in the hotel school. So he came home one Christmas, we chatted. He said, "You should really apply." I hesitated, but I applied and I got accepted. Actually had an opportunity to visit Cornell for COSEP or the pre-freshman weekend. I think it's held each April. Visited and decided this is not for me. This is not where I want to be. Not in Ithaca, New York. It's not even in New York City. Right. So we went back home. My mother went with me. We went back home and it came decision time. And my parents said, when Cornell calls, you go. So the decision was made for me that I was going to attend Cornell University and not any of these other schools that I wanted to attend. So went, and it was absolutely the best decision. I got in and out in 4 years. I'm not going to say it was not a struggle. It was a struggle because my learning was a bit different in Mississippi. I do think my education, my public school education, was top notch, but at the same time, there are absolutely people smarter than you when you get to college. So there was a huge learning curve, but I was determined. I surrounded myself with the right people, and I was in and out in 4 years in the hotel school. Again, the best decision ever. It took me several years to realize that, but here we are. I graduated. I worked for Marriott Travel Company for a few years based out of St. Louis, Missouri. I was a travel director. So I traveled the world to implement various programs. Got tired of being on the road for 20, 25 days a month, and I needed to go inside of a hotel. So I moved to Atlanta, worked for Hyatt Regency Atlanta, and became the associate director of catering. And a while after that, I actually took a job for a previous client, the Links Incorporated, and I moved to Washington, D.C. as their director of meetings. Worked for the Links Incorporated, a nonprofit organization based here, for 10 years. 5 of those years, I was a director of meetings, and I got promoted to executive director to basically work very closely with the national president, and lead the organization's strategy. Different career path now. Now I'm in nonprofits, still connected to hospitality, but more nonprofits. And after 10 years, I left the Links to work for the NAACP, which is where I am now as the chief of staff. So very connected to business, hospitality, but now nonprofits and civic organizations helping the people.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary story, Eris. And so Mississippi to upstate New York.
Yes, Mississippi to upstate New York. That was the biggest culture shock. It was. As I mentioned, once I saw Ithaca, once I got on that little plane to go from New York City to Ithaca in April of 1995, okay. I said, this is not for me. This is not for me. I need to be down south. I need to be at a different type of school. But as I realized, it was senior year, I think. I've now gone through Cornell for 4 years. And senior year, it's like, this is the best decision. This is a really good decision. The opportunities that I had at Cornell to really shape my vision for what I thought I wanted to do as an entrepreneur, GM in the hospitality industry, Cornell was the best school for that. Some of my friends who went to different schools, universities, they took the basic classes for the first 2 years while they decided what they wanted to do the last 2 years or 3 years, whatever that meant. But Cornell, especially for the hotel school, put you right in. You start taking food and beverage classes, rooms classes, and you become, a bit of an expert when you go into these different hotels. It certainly shaped my knowledge for when I became a travel director for Merits and helped with Hyatt. It still helps me to this day. Again, it's a different path. I don't work directly in the hospitality industry, but I have a number of hospitality industry connections. We do a lot of meetings and events at the NAACP, whether it's local, state, or national level. So all of that knowledge is invaluable. But it was absolutely a shock to be there. I remember being asked often, the basic questions about Mississippi, just because it's down south. And you hear so many negative things about Mississippi. Do you have running water? Did you grow up on a farm? Yeah, in 1995, we were still asking those questions. Sure. And I joke about it today, but no, I absolutely had running water. And no, I did not grow up on a farm. I've never milked a cow in my life. That's just not the upbringing that I had. Some people did have it, but that's not my story. So, but it was still a shock. And of course, I have a Southern accent. I don't talk like everybody in Mississippi. It's not as Southern as it can be. But if you are from New York and you hear me talk, the question is, where are you from? Yeah. So, lots of adjusting.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat poetic here. Is that so? Mississippi. So I think about Mississippi, and I think about the struggle that Black and brown people, more specifically Black people, had in the state of Mississippi. And just to understand that's your roots. And through your journey, you're now working for and with an organization that is grounded in the social justice and what it is to understand what equality looks like. So I was in a conversation with a couple of students the other day, and I used the term NAACP. And the students looked at me as though, I think I've heard that before. And I realized over time that there probably needs to be a history lesson in regards to who the NAACP is and what they have done to really create this organization to be what it is today. So if you could just share with us, tell us a little bit about the history of the NAACP.
Certainly. We get the question sometimes, a little less frequently now, but is the NAACP still relevant? And we've been able to turn that around a bit. But the NAACP started in 1909. We were founded as a result of the 1908 race riots in Springfield, Illinois, by a group of white and Black activists, one of whom was W.E.B. Du Bois. They felt that things were so out of hand that they needed to create an organization to help fight civil rights. The Springfield race riots, as the story goes, a few Black individuals were arrested for allegedly committing a crime against some white individuals. And that, of course, they were transferred secretly to a jail. And that, of course, angered a white mob. And that white mob then went on to burn down and vandalize various properties and homes in the Black area of Springfield, Illinois. And things like this were happening all across the country, not just in Springfield. But as a result, these activists created the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And that was 113 years ago. And here we are still today in 2022. We're still a network of activists and community leaders who are building Black political and social economic power through advocacy, litigation, and civic engagement. We like to say that we are the voice of the voiceless. There are so many in our communities that cannot speak for themselves. They don't have the means to speak for themselves. We want to change the laws. We are not necessarily a service organization, but an advocacy organization. We are on Capitol Hill fighting for the rights of everyone to move about their daily lives without discrimination. We focus our work in a few areas: criminal justice, health, environment, and of course, education. And again, we want to do all of that without discrimination. Because we're 113 years old, we are a legacy organization. So we connect wisdom with the energy of today. We have staff members that range from, 20s. Our oldest staff member is 96 years old. She has been with this organization working to help further our mission for 69 years.
Wow.
And she's still going strong. Her mind is good. We celebrated her birthday a few weeks ago. We have volunteers across this country that start with our youth and college division and go until, folks are over their 90s. The New York State Conference president, Hazel N. Dukes, is one of our older members. If you're from the New York area and have had anything to do with the NAACP, you know who Hazel Dukes is.
Yeah.
So we are still fighting for the rights of Black people in our communities. Here we are 113 years old, but that's a little history on the NAACP.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. One of the things that as talking with you and doing a little research, when we go to your website, that's one of the things we're going to share with people throughout this conversation. There is so much rich content regarding what the NAACP is doing, how they're impacting people in different communities, how the work that they're doing across the country, the social justice, discrimination, all those different elements. And so that is one element that which in this conversation, I really want people to take some time, go into that website and just kind of peruse through it and formulate. And I know I had some aha moments just going into that website.
Good.
So a question I want to add, I'm sorry, was there anything else you want to add to what?
No. I'd love for you to share it and have people take a look. And there's a place on there where people can certainly ask us questions, inquire, and absolutely, we're open to answering questions and helping direct people as they need to be directed.
So I'm going to go to a question that one of our audience posed, and it kind of leads into our theme here of today's conversation. So the question is, how are you reaching out to 21 plus citizens in age, that is, to motivate them to be involved as far as activities within the local chapters? And it seems as if the NAACP is for older folks.
We absolutely get that all the time because a number of our members are older. The median age of our membership is over 50. And I'm losing light in here. My lights just went out because I'm not moving enough, I guess. However, we do have our youth and college department, led by a wonderful leader, Wisdom Cole. And we are making sure that we connect with people, with young people in various cities across the country. We have college chapters. We are making sure that we understand the needs of those young people, and we pull teams together to fight for what those needs are. You may have heard a lot about the cancellation of student debt. We have certainly been very vocal and leading the discussion in the cancellation of student debt. We have the outcome that we have of canceling $20,000 and $10,000 based on income. We've certainly been fighting for much more. We've been fighting for $50,000 in student debt cancellation, and understanding, again, the needs of those under 21 and just over 21 as well, because we want to fight for the concerns of everyone, not just what older people are looking for. But we're connecting on colleges and just in communities. We have a number of college chapters, and we also want our young leaders to be leaders. Our board members, we have 7 board members that are from our youth and college division. We have 7 regions within the association. So each region is represented by a youth and college board member that is someone that is under 25. They have full board member rights. And trust me, in our conversations, if the conversation goes a little to the left and is focused on something that the older individuals want, the board members speak up and say, what about youth in college? What about this? We need to make sure we focus on that. So we are certainly making an effort to focus on the needs of our younger generation.
Yeah. You know, I am curious, Eris, about, I mean, I love the fact that when you said there are college chapters. So for an example, I mean, what is that? So think about it here at Cornell. Is there, or anywhere that there's a chapter, I mean, how does one go about establishing that on their campus? Because that to me speaks volumes if the presence of the NAACP is on a college campus. So help us understand how that happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. The individuals would need to basically organize on their campus and get a group together. We would connect them to hopefully a local chapter there. And we'd have some conversations with our youth and college team. There are a number of steps that take us to getting to a chapter, but we're certainly willing to have those conversations and get the information out as needed to campuses across the country, whether it be Cornell University or Syracuse University, any university. It's certainly needed. We are constantly establishing chapters. We are in 42 states across the country, and nearly 2,200 chapters, whether it's college, prison, regular chapters, state conferences. But we touch quite a few individuals, and we need to touch more. It's certainly not enough.
Well, I think that is great to unpack that a little bit, because when I think about it, so when you were here at Cornell, you were part of the NSMH, the National Society of Minorities in Hospitality, which was birthed here out of Cornell.
Yes.
Now it has, I think, over 100 chapters across the country. So I just think in my head about the model and the notoriety and the branding and the history of the NAACP. And that would be, to me, tremendous to see that to be an active, an active marketing campaign to make sure colleges are aware of this.
Absolutely. And this conversation is going to make me talk to Wisdom to see what we can do to make that happen. We will certainly take a look at that, because we're having conversations all the time regarding how we can touch more individuals and younger individuals. We recognize that, the median age of this organization is what it is. And in order for us to be around another 113 years, we have to tap into that knowledge of those younger individuals. I mentioned our youth and college division. And because we recognize people fall off, we have, a good presence there. People fall off after that 25-year age range and come back when they're in their, 40s, 50s, things are happening in their community and they want to get involved. So we have what's called our Next Gen program. And we are revamping that to launch again later this year. And that is for those individuals, I believe it's 25 to 40. And we want to help teach them how to be leaders in their community as a whole, as well as leaders in their local branches and states. So we are developing a curriculum to certainly assist with that, because we don't want to lose anybody. And there's enough work for all of these age ranges to go around.
Yeah, awesome. So let me pick another question from the audience here. Do you believe in positive discrimination policies for companies that don't have people of color working with them? What's the best way to implement them?
I believe that we do need to give everyone a fair chance. The challenge is we don't always give everyone a fair chance. So we have to create various policies so that everyone can have a foot in the door. So to continue, again, the organization has to continue to advocate and have a voice for the voiceless. I will keep going back to that, because that's exactly what we do. We have to make sure that the individuals that, attend a public school, and I'll take Cornell, attend a public school and whose parents, do jobs where they may be making minimum wage, have the same opportunities that the student that has the parents that are the CEOs or the entrepreneurs and owners of the company. So we don't always have that. So we have to continue to fight for those equitable rights.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let me harken back to this bubble period that we all experienced, and when COVID happened in 2020, and that was a moment in time that stood still.
Absolutely.
While it stood still, there's a lot that happened in the stillness of this pandemic, in particular around the idea of the injustices that will continue to happen for people of color, more specifically Black community. So how has the past 5 years to this day impacted the mission and vision for the NAACP?
I think the past 5 years, and not just the past 5 years, but it's continued to show us that we have to continue to do what we do. We are fighting some of the same battles that our parents, that our ancestors fought. It may be slightly different, but we're still talking about the same things. We're still talking about race discrimination and, the need for gun reform and police reform. The last 5 years have taught us that we still have to fight. We also have to slow down, take care of ourselves. But the work is there. When we talk about the fights of recent, you think about George Floyd, that slowed everything down in 2020. We were already in a pandemic, but we were able to focus on the George Floyd incident because we were in the middle of a pandemic and we were home and we were watching our televisions. Had we not been in the middle of a pandemic, would we have had the same focus on George Floyd that we had and have the outcomes that we have today? That's one of the things that makes George Floyd, the situation, so significant, because we watched it. We saw it, we slowed down. There are over 100 people that have been killed, in much of the same way since he died. We haven't focused on all of those because we're moving, we're shaking, we're back at work, we're out here doing the things, but there are organizations still fighting for, again, police reform, gun reform, and doing all the things that we need to do. So the last 5 years, we're another thing, reproductive rights. Who would have ever thought that we would be fighting for reproductive rights in 2022? Because we fought that battle a while ago, but we're still taking it up again. So we're still fighting, just as we always have been, which makes this organization more relevant than ever right now.
Yeah. Look, that is so true, Eris. I want to drill down and be more specific to the Black Lives Movement. And when you think about the Black Lives Movement that happened and continues to happen, how has the NAACP and BLM either partnered or how are you working with one another as it relates to still addressing the issue that you just referenced regarding still issues regarding Black and brown people being killed in the streets and in different spaces? So is there some relationship that you could perhaps maybe highlight to the audience that really speaks to BLM and NAACP?
We certainly partner with a number of organizations. When it comes to Black Lives Matter is much a hashtag. There are certainly the individuals that founded that, but the NAACP partners with a number of organizations to fight these causes, whether it be the National Urban League or National Action Network, the National Coalition for Black Civic Participation. The list goes on and on and on. There are 7 organizations that our president and CEO meets with regularly to talk about issues facing our communities every single day. Those leaders talk, they visit with the President of the United States and various congressional leaders. They've had conversations with the Vice President, making sure that our concerns are heard and that the administration is hopefully doing all that they can to help change the lives of the individuals that are impacted most on certain areas.
Mm-hmm. So, when I think about the work that the NAACP has been doing for over 100 years and to this present day, when you think about the term, the advancement of colored people, has there been a conversation around, is this still the appropriate title for what this organization is doing, or is it now has pigeonholed itself into a space? So I'm sure, so your response is indicating this has been a conversation here.
It's absolutely been a conversation, but not a real conversation. We get this question. We get this question often. Why is it colored? Why is the word colored? Or have you thought about changing? It should really be this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. So people give us suggestions all the time. They call us, they email us, they write us letters to suggest or just ask questions. But we still feel that the NAACP and the colored in NAACP is still relevant. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we are absolutely fighting for the rights of Black people, but we are fighting for the rights of all people. We want equal rights for all people. And we come in different colors. So as a result, we're going to keep colored for now. It's going to still be the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
I love that. And I think to the motto of we want equality for all. And that was the impetus of why the organization birthed, and that is where we want to be.
Exactly.
And it doesn't, and I think, and I would just say, coming out of the South myself in Virginia, and knowing that when you would hear certain terms, you would immediately take you to, oh, this is just for a particular set of constituencies, whether it was Black or whether it was the indigenous community. We would all just check the box and put people in that category, and we felt we couldn't see ourselves in that. But one of the things you initially said was that, the NAACP in its birth was developed and created through other allies and others who understood the value of that, the oppression and marginalization of one, would also be the marginalization of others. So we want to create equality across the board.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess my question with this is, how do you see others outside of the Black and brown community, specifically the Black community, seeing themselves, our white majority, and certain leaders, really seeing their place and their responsibility and working with this organization and to really support the efforts that it continues to do around social justice and equality for Black and brown people?
Well, I think non-white individuals, can see just as well as the rest of us. And, if you are raised to do a certain thing, you think a certain way, whatever that is. And based on how you're raised and the things that you learn as you matriculate through life, you understand what's right and what's wrong. Whatever that means, you understand right from wrong. And when you see that people are being treated unfairly, and you realize that I need to say something, it's as simple as be kind. Understand that people do not need to be discriminated against. We all need equal rights. And so there are a number of non-Black, non-colored people that understand that. And many do their part in helping organizations, helping individuals across the country. We couldn't make it in this world without each other. So we certainly do what we can to work together. We have a number of allies that, speak up. We always need someone, whether it's individually or collectively, we need someone to speak up for us when we're not in the room, no matter what that situation is. And so a number of people do that for us.
Yeah, I think that is so critical of knowing that we all have that responsibility when oppression or marginalization is happening to one. What's our responsibility in the call of that?
Absolutely.
So a question in the chat is, understanding all the work that NAACP does is essential. What would be the number one or one most critical initiative for the organization? And what is your plea to us concerning how we can help?
Vote. It is that simple. The number one challenge is, we're fighting for voting rights and we want to help people get out to vote. The NAACP is never going to tell you how to vote. We want you to go vote. So we are going to work in our communities. We're going to have rides to the polls, possibly. We want you to register to vote. We're going to do everything we can to get you to register to vote, but we want to get you there so that you can make a difference in your community. And you can only do that by voting. We've been fighting for the right to vote for years. We're still fighting for the right to vote. And the only way to make a change in our communities is that we vote. We all go out and vote, not we all, but many of us go out and vote when it's a presidential election year. That's not the most important election. It's what happens in your local communities. So everyone on here is likely 18 years old. So if you haven't registered to vote, please go out, register to vote in this election and in every election. And, now things are advancing. So you can do absentee ballot and still vote at home while you're in college. So it's so important. And it's getting involved in your communities. So if you understand what you're voting for and who you're voting for, I can't say that enough. You have to understand who you're voting for and who you put into office, because the things in your community, the things that happen at the local level, the state level, the national level, are all because of our elected officials. And so we want to make sure that we have the elected officials in office that are looking out for our best interest.
Yeah. I look at your website and I think when you look at your website, you see all these wonderful initiatives around voting rights, around just looking at, the debt relief that you talked about earlier. This is such a rich platform that so much information is there for us to be able to at least be pointed in the right direction of how should we kind of target, because sometimes we can get paralyzed around thinking, what do I do to be impactful in the work that I want to be impactful based upon the issues that are facing us today. And I think for Victor, what has worked for me is finding that place, and particularly in your local community. I'm glad you mentioned that. In your local community, the importance of really getting people to vote, making sure you understand the needs, what's going on in your community.
Correct.
Because that is so critical. And
that's so critical. It is. To understand who your mayor is, your judges, it's just, it shapes everything. It shapes everything in your community. Yeah. Our local issues, infrastructure. We have to talk about that locally. So yes, it's super important, Victor.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So let me ask this question, tying Eris into from a personal perspective. So given the important work that you're doing, what's your vision of success, both personally and professionally? And what do you hope to achieve with your work that will influence our next generation of leaders?
With my particular work, I oversee a lot of different things as the chief of staff of the NAACP. I oversee the executive office, so that's the office of the president and CEO, as well as the chairman of the board. Our partnerships with our other civic and social organizations, our events team, tying me back to hospitality, our Hollywood Bureau, tying me back to hospitality and the entertainment industry. And with that, I have an opportunity to really see and hear a lot of things. And I have to lead all of these individuals and many different projects. So in this role, I want to achieve helping others be their best selves and be leaders in their roles professionally and personally, whatever that means for them. It's very important to know your work, be confident, and excel. I want to help someone else because someone helped me. And so I feel that we always need to pay it forward and just help others achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. Our future is very equitable. So it's a matter of helping others excel and exceed.
Yeah. That's so much on point. I think we all are in a space in which we want to participate, and how do we find that entry point of doing that is critical for us being able to not allow the barriers to prohibit us from leaning in with that sense of responsibility of what that is. And so I know when I reached out to you years ago, when I say years ago now, and just reconnecting with you, what I loved about our initial conversation is that your immediate thing was, Victor, I want to pay it forward. I'm looking for those opportunities, and it doesn't matter what they look like. I'm open to whatever they are. And I think that is a word of wisdom that I love to hear, is that it doesn't have to be prescribed how we want to lean into these avenues, as long as we see something and we see, this is how I can be impactful in this moment and do some of the work that is needed.
Absolutely. It's about being impactful in this moment. It's about taking a look, I think, inside your inner self, understanding what makes you happy, what you're passionate about. We spend a lot of time working, doing what we do. So we need to be passionate about it. We need to absolutely love what that is. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, somebody helped us get to where we are. So I just truly feel that we all need to pay it forward and help someone else excel and exceed. I can't say that enough. There are a lot of people out there that just need a listening ear or a helping hand or someone to speak up for them when they are not in the room.
Mhm.
And again, 9 times out of 10, somebody's done that for each one of us.
Yeah.
Listening to me right now. And I know that people do it for me all the time. So I want to make sure that I do it for others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 So let me lean in with this question, just thinking, continuing the framework of the future of what we see and what we are observing in terms of the NAACP. One of the things, I guess, from Victor's perspective is it's not like I see a branding of the word NAACP that's out there in front of people that you may not necessarily see that here's the work that you're doing. But when you talked about the advocacy of what impact that the organization took in terms of just being that voice on Capitol Hill for reducing student debt, behind the scenes of really getting people to want to vote. And so these grassroots efforts, are you finding that when you think about your constituents, are you finding that it's a challenge to get people to really coalesce around these messages of debt reduction and for, in terms of even for student debt and for getting people to want to go vote? I mean, any resistance that you see out there in the world in different communities? And if so, how are you responding to those things?
I mean, people, they're different sides of every coin, of every story.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certainly people that don't necessarily see things as we see them at the NAACP or inside of these other organizations. But that just means that we have to continue to do this work. We have to continue to advocate. We have to continue to tell stories. We have to continue to help others understand that not everyone thinks alike. We don't all have the same advantages. So we have to continue to fight and just make sure that we are doing what we need to do for everyone in our community.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. So I have this question around, harkening back to our students in this context of just speaking to them, what advice would you give our students, especially our students of color, as they evaluate opportunities in front of them?
I would say be open, open to all opportunities and explore various opportunities. If you look back on my career trajectory, again, I wanted to work in the hospitality industry, be an entrepreneur and own hotels and restaurants and all of those things. But that took a little different turn. Even before leaving Cornell, I decided I wanted to do events and something in events. So I started to focus on that, which led me to Merits, which led me to Hyatt, and eventually led me to where I am today. So you have to be open, look at your skill set and understand exactly what it is that is. Develop it, as much as possible. And then do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy, but also be the leader that I know that all of you are. And lead in your professional life, in your work life, in your community, and just be open to all possibilities. And it's also super important, I think, to find a mentor to help you understand what your strong points are. Somebody that's working in the industry that you think you want to be a part of, and find that person. Don't hesitate to ask. They may not have the time to do it. Hopefully they're honest and they will say yes or, politely decline. We don't want anybody to take on anything that they don't have time to do, because being a mentor takes time and effort, but it's very, very important. I can't stress enough, just be open to various opportunities that are presented. You may think you want to do one thing, but there's something else out there, and just be open.
Yeah, love that. So we have a question from the audience I want to pose to you. appreciating the advocacy of the NAACP, is there any thoughts on involving the organization from an advocacy to action? For example, advocacy promote important policy changes. However, action would include funding, legal support for Black and Brown families in legal conflict with biased laws.
Okay, so we do a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Advocacy, obviously advocacy. We talked about that. We know we're an advocacy organization, but with our legal department is working each day to understand what new litigation we can bring against, those companies or, individuals that have wronged a community. We just we have some new litigation. You probably heard of the Jackson water crisis, Jackson, Mississippi,
yes.
bad water. We just brought a lawsuit against, I believe, the state of Mississippi a few days ago. So it is on our website. Please take a look at that. And there's always various challenges that we're bringing litigation against. So there's additional information, because I don't work in the legal department. It's not coming to me, but we certainly fight through the laws and our legal department.
Yeah, no, excellent. And speaking about laws, I mean, understanding that that voice of so let me ask this: when you're thinking about issues related to, let's just talk a little bit about the issue in Mississippi regarding water in that community. So is it through the constituencies in that community that bring enough attention to an issue to where they are then voicing it to either the local constituencies or they're reaching out to another organization that eventually gets into the NAACP? I want to see what is that cycle in which you take something that's very local, but our understanding it perhaps is not being addressed, that now bubbles up to the NAACP to be a part of this action. What does that look like?
It can be a number of ways. Typically, it's a local issue first, and then it becomes a more state or national issue. I'll go back to Jackson Water. That became a national issue. As you were watching the news, you learned about it. There are things happening all the time that we don't necessarily know about that happen. But if it's brought to the organization's attention and our legal team reviews it, they have the conversations that they need to have and then take the appropriate action. Another thing that we've talked about for a number of years is menthol cigarettes. Menthol cigarettes have been around forever and really impact the Black community. And so, we've had a number of cases against that, and working to get those menthol cigarettes off the shelves, and so that they no longer have that negative impact on the Black community.
Yeah. Wow, that is such an that's a great example of the impact of something as menthol cigarettes. And it also speaks to this idea of deserts that can happen in certain communities that are under-resourced, and having easy access to things in which perhaps it's almost like you're targeting a community.
Correct.
You're targeting a community.
Exactly. That's the case with menthol cigarettes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think recognizing that, and I look at that example, and I think about different communities in which we are in certain urban environments and or rural environments that you're far away from certain opportunities, whether it's healthcare or whether access to quality food. I mean, these are fundamental issues that I think are still happening within these different binaries, if you were to look at the urban environment, the rural environment, however. But there's an issue here that intersects around the lack of resources and or being targeted by a constituent. So when I think about a rural community, for example, citing this, and I'll just say it, I'll be just transparent in saying this. So when you think about the white constituencies, will they bring an issue to the NAACP as a way to say, I am being marginalized, and perhaps you as an organization can support this effort, even though at least as people look at it, they may not necessarily see that you're speaking to this audience, if that makes sense.
We are open to receiving information from all people, Victor.
Yes.
It's a matter of then taking a look at the complaints, the challenge, to determine if this is something that we need to take on or not. People bring us things all the time because there are things happening in communities around the country every single day. And as I talked about being a strong community leader earlier, it's up to each and every one of us to understand what's happening in our communities and to fight for what's right. And perhaps that does mean taking an issue to the NAACP or to another organization so that those individuals can take a look at it and determine what's next. You've seen, a lot of lawsuits just across the country on different things. So there's certainly people that are there and ready to fight for their communities. So we will take a look at whatever's brought to us. Yeah. It's up to our legal department to determine what the next steps are.
Awesome. Yeah. So as we get close to the end here, and I think about this conversation, and I keep referring back to the website because there's so much information on the website that really talks about the work that you're doing, the work that the organization is looking for people to get involved in, the work that educates people around issues that perhaps many of us in particular may not be aware of, simply because there's so much information out there. But if you really want to hone in and get a perspective from this organization, it's a good resource for that. So as we close out this conversation, what are some of your closing thoughts that you would like to share with people, whether it's from your perspective personally as you think about the work that you do with NAACP, or what would be a takeaway you would really want people to walk away with as it relates to the organization and the work that it's doing from your perspective, personally and or professionally?
Just mix it all up.
Exactly.
I would a couple of things I think come to mind as we talk about a takeaway and leaving this conversation. We certainly want to continue to protect our communities and fight for everyone. So that we can ensure that everyone has those equal rights that we talked about. But we've also talked about leadership and how we get to where we are. And I want us all to remember that we have to empower others, work with the people in your community. I want us all to be leaders. I talked about helping others become leaders. And I want everyone to become their best self. Whatever that means about being happy, being a leader in your community, in your workplace, in your personal life, and communicating the needs and the challenges of whatever's happening. Everyone needs a voice. Everyone wants to be heard, but not everyone can speak for themselves. So it's up to us to do that. And we have to protect our communities and our elderly and our children in doing all of that. We want the next generation to have it better, to have better things than we've had. So we have to do everything that we can to do that. And as we fight discrimination, as we fight for civil rights, help someone else excel and exceed in whatever it is that they are doing because someone helped you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Those are some wonderful words of wisdom, Eris. And I know that your mom and your family, they're all so proud of the work that you're doing and how you continue to avail yourself. And you think about that family connection. I mean, our family roots. And when you think about the importance of what was fed into us, what was given to you as this intrinsic value of how do I go out and be a servant leader? And this work that you guys are doing, and you're doing as an alum of this institution or the hotel school, representing your family, representing you and what you're doing. I want to thank you. Thank you for being in the gap and doing the work that you do. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate that. So I think we're at the close of our conversation. Certainly at this point, again, I want to thank the organizers of the Impact Week. We have so many other events that are happening throughout this week, leading up to next week. So we have promotional information that's out on our website, and it's called Impact at Cornell. So check that out as other information that are happening through the entire university at many colleges. Here at Cornell University. So again, thank you for this conversation, Eris. And
thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. And have a wonderful day. And look forward to seeing you on campus soon.
Absolutely.
Take care.
And we are out. Great work.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was good. Thank you.
I enjoyed that.